Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity even is spread, but opportunities are not. Today in GSD, we have 184 companies that come from 73, now 74 countries around the world. So today I have the pleasure of having an incredible guest on the show. This is GSD Presents Top Global Startups. It's a show where I speak with visionary founders building the technologies shaping our future. As I said, I'm Gary Fowler, the co-founder and CEO of GSD Venture Studios. Today, we're exploring the fascinating journey from scientific discoveries to startup creation, a path that requires not only scientific insight, but also entrepreneurship, capital, and perseverance. My guest today is Sean Macfarlane, founder and CEO of Biomarx. Sean is a molecular and cellular biologist who transitioned from laboratory research into biotech entrepreneurship. His work in infectious disease research and automated diagnostic platforms he saw a huge major gap between scientific discovery and clinical implementation, particularly in oncology. Driven to address the stagnant clinical standards in lung cancer diagnostics, one of the most prevalent and deadly cancers worldwide, he founded Biomarx, a company focused on developing innovative diagnostic solutions designed to improve detection and ultimately save lives. His journey has been supported by leading innovation programs, including the Pioneer Group Accelerator and Northern Ireland's Founders Lab, helping move cutting-edge science towards real-world application. Today, we're going to talk about moving innovations from the lab to the marketplace, the challenges of raising capital for science-driven startups, especially in areas of Europe, the importance of protecting intellectual property in biotech, and how diagnostic technologies could reshape lung cancer detection and treatment. So with that, I'd like to welcome him to the show. And today he's not in Ireland, he is in Scotland. So how you doing, Sean?
All good, Gary. How are you?
Fantastic. So I want to start at the beginning. How did you go from, you studied molecular biology. What did you wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'm going to be a molecular and cellular biologist?
No, not even. When I was first applying to university, I was going in to do medicine. And now granted, I probably didn't have the grades anyway to get in, but it was really kind of last minute before we've like our UCAS applications, decided to take a change and do biochemistry. I studied here at the University of Glasgow for my bachelor's degree, and we were allowed to kind of explore different sciences for our first 2 years. And I kind of explored biochemistry, pure chemistry, and then inevitably ended up in molecular biology. So it was a wee bit of a chop and change for a couple of years.
So at what point did you realize that discoveries happening in the lab weren't quite making it into real clinical practice fast enough? And, so that's question one. And then what's the moment that you decided this needs to become a company?
Well, I suppose like during any academic program, you spend a lot of your time reading papers. You're reading about brilliance and novel concepts constantly being released in literature, into like journals. But then while I also studied the last 2 years of my degree, I also worked in industry. I worked for an Irish biotech company. And you see the kind of disparity between how quick and rapid these new methods are coming out in literature, but they're never really transitioning into the clinical lab. Like if you think, like I know we spoke a little bit earlier about kidney disease. If you talk about it like a creatinine test, like creatinine's presence in serum being a reflection on the kidneys, a test that's existed from the 1940s, and it's still the kind of dependent clinical test here today, where there was a massive kind of gap in transitioning deep academic principle into commercial opportunity. So that was always kind of like the main bias between it.
Why is that, Sean? Is it because the academicians, I've worked around a lot of academicians worldwide, but sometimes they just want to write about things. They don't want to ever do anything. I mean, I'm not saying this in a negative way. They don't want to, they're not entrepreneurs.
Like, I suppose I suppose like I'm Irish, like I come from the island of Ireland, where we look at the kind of deep tech hubs for in Cork and Galway and Dublin, and then especially up in Belfast, where like Queen's University of Cubis, and then I'm currently working out of the University of Strathclyde that has a massive entrepreneurial system. I think before like maybe the last like 20, 30 years, you had that disparity between academics had the innovation and possibly the risk appetite, and then industry had the, I suppose, capital. They had the monetary ability to transition some of these concepts into commercial products. But really, in my kind of like point of view from it all, it's only really the last like 20, 30 years we're seeing such an increase in academics commercializing tech, that academic entrepreneurial journey. And then especially in Ireland for deep tech, like the amount of pharma startups, kind of life science drug companies that come out of Ireland and then kind of transition transatlantically into these American assets with like rich IP. It is becoming more and more common, but yeah, like historically, academia always had the brilliance and the innovation, but industry, I suppose.
It's not just Ireland. I see it all over the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's three things you need to build a unicorn. You need operational expertise, access to capital, networking contacts. And if you have those three in a resilient team, any company can become a unicorn. Sometimes we forget though, Sean, that the most important part is not the product that you have. It's the storytelling. And I remember taking that course at Stanford University. It's 90% of it, because people have been enchanted by stories forever. But if you can hit home and touch their soul with that story, everything changes. Most people never get it, and that's why 90% of the companies fail, right? They just don't get it. They go to a Series A and then they fail. And it's not an Ireland situation. It's not a European situation. It's not an African situation. It's not a US. It's the problem is most people just don't connect the dots. Remember, Aristotle said the sum of the parts equal the whole. Well, when you put this together, everything changes.
No, like absolutely. Like I suppose as an academic turned founder, a big kind of challenge for me was always finding how to break down my academic principles into a marketable solution. Now, like granted, lung cancer is a very attainable problem, whether almost every individual nowadays has either known someone, a close family member with cancer, and generally as a whole, nobody likes it. Like that was a pretty easy kind of value proposition to get ahead, but it's the ability to break down kind of academic value into a story you can walk your investor through.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, because some of these things for them are far-fetched, right? They don't understand them, but they want to invest. The impact. I call these frontier sciences. By the way, some of the companies like Voxy are inside of GSD right now. So actually, that company, you can tell if you have lung cancer from your breath.
Brilliant.
So
yeah,
Boston Scientific actually, and MedMatch Network out of Yale. He's a Yale neurosurgeon. That's in GSD. Cerebro, which is a company in Denmark, Copenhagen, is another company. They're taking MRI images and dramatically changing the efficacy of those images. And I probably shouldn't tell how much money they raised, but let's just say they're doing real well.
Yeah. No, like, what was I going to say? No, like, absolutely. Like, I think lung cancer and biotech's a very investable space at the minute. And then I suppose because we were pre-MVP, it wasn't so much about just selling the story, but also selling the ability to pull it off. Like, especially in the diagnostic space, we're not even 5-6 years away from like when Theranos occurred. Like there is that kind of just distrust still, I suppose, in the investor market, and you have to kind of handle that at the same time.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the money is in the family offices, right? Because family offices, it's interesting. So Sean, when you're developing a new diagnostic approach, right, for lung cancer, biomarker selection is critical. Are you focusing primarily on genomic, proteomic, or metabolomic biomarkers? And what criteria do you use to determine what signals are clinically meaningful versus noise? By the way, I'm not asking these questions. This right now is my AI. She's very interested in what you're doing.
No, so we're looking at genomics. So it's cell-free DNA. So basically, cells constantly kind of burst open all across your body and spit out bits of DNA. And if you have the ability to kind of read them or detect them at ultra low concentrations, you can basically gain a lot of information about what's happening within the body at a molecular level.
Do you mind answering some of these? Is it interesting for you in these technical questions? Because she's got some things she's very curious about it.
For it.
So since you're focused on genomics, are you primarily identifying specific genomic mutations associated with lung cancer? Are you analyzing broader genomic signatures and patterns that indicates disease earlier than traditional diagnostics?
Yeah, so the biomarkers themselves are pretty much predetermined now. They're pretty widely accepted in literature across like epidermal growth factor or KRAS. Like there's a select bunch of them. We're looking at the expression or the presence of the circulating tumor DNA within blood, and then possibly expanded into RNA as of kind of recently. But yeah, so that'll kind of be a core detection method opposed to like a sequence and library.
You know, one of the challenges in a genomic diagnostic detecting very low frequency tumor mutations in early stage disease. How do you address the issue of low variant frequency, allele frequency when trying to detect cancer early? How does it work? How does it pick it up?
That's like a PhD vibe of this. Yeah, so that like the biggest challenge when detecting circulating tumor DNA is it's present in very, very small frequencies compared to the massive amounts of non-mutated genes.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking like IP wise, what I'm able to say, we have a competitive assay. We're developing a competitive assay that has an ability to block the noise of abundant wild type non-mutant DNA, and then in particularly take forward the mutant DNA through the reaction. And then at the end, it'll be quantified using two different methods that are taken in sequence. And that basically allows us to not only mitigate kind of wild type non-mutant disturbance, but then also to be super, super confident in our detection because we're doing two independent measurements taken back to back.
Okay, so the AI that I have wants to go down through and help you out, and so she's going to give you questions that groups like Sequoia, some of the top investors, would be interested in. Do you mind answering those questions? Because I have millions of views of my show, if that will help you out.
Let's hear the question. So we're due patent filing kind of at the end of this year. So we'll hear the questions, but we'll see what we can answer.
Yeah. So why don't we? So she said. So my AI went down through, and so we won't jump into the granular details of the situation. Let me just go back to some of the earlier questions because she's jumping way down, and I don't know. It's a longer thing. She's really interested. My AI is really interested. Many great scientists struggle with commercialization. What were the biggest challenges you faced transitioning from researcher to entrepreneur?
I suppose it's creating an environment. So as a startup in a very heavy regulated industry, it's creating an environment and a team that allow true like academic curiosity to thrive in a commercial vehicle. So anything we do is subject to regulation and audit. And it's about creating them processes that allow flexibility in design work while also maintaining compliance. And like my COO, Alex Harkin, so she pretty much kind of dovetails with me in terms of regulatory. So as I move through my work in the lab, she kind of comes alongside me. We check in every so often and go, can we either pivot here and push it a little bit this way or do this study just to ensure compliance as we move? So that would be the big one kind of.
What skills did you have to learn quickly as a founder in order to be successful, to take it to where you are today?
A lot of acronyms, SEIS, ARR, like, yeah, business folk love an acronym. Pitching was a big one, where again, like in the academic space, in the clinical space, like I suppose you yourself are a clinical psychologist, it's very matter of the fact, it's very serious. And when I then was in rooms having to pitch, and it was actually, I was on a program with the Founders Lab Pre-Accelerator up in Derry, and the program lead, Jennifer Neff, brought in a stage coach for us. And in that kind of cohort, there were a lot of AI companies or like SaaS companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were probably had that upper hand on me, where they were used to dealing with clients and sales, where I had never really kind of experienced something in my life. So trying to, I suppose, animate myself to talk about, because a business it should sound exciting, it should be delivered with enthusiasm, where for the last X years I've been in kind of very not robotic but very kind of serious matter of the fact industries. So I suppose that kind of learning to put the founder's hat on a wee bit better.
So, in reference to your we talked about your IP and that you're going to be filing some, it's critical, right? How do you approach protecting the scientific innovation behind Biomarx, and what mistakes do you think early biotech founders make when thinking about patents or IP strategy?
Yeah, well, so at the minute in the entire world, there are 3 of us that truly know the designs, and the other 2 are personally people I would trust with my life. So I have no real concerns there. Even when we engage with like different suppliers or subcontractors, they're under NDAs, but they're usually given a kind of tiny piece of the much larger puzzle, just kind of fed what they need. In terms of like IP strategies, it isn't something I know an awful lot about. Our kind of strategy from the get-go was just hyperlogical. We tell nobody until we're done, until we're filed. I suppose the kind of conversations we were having in early days was, is it worthwhile to put in an overarching patent application? But my fear was, when you go through any development cycle, there's constant iterations. There's no point filing a patent that in 8 months' time, 12 months' time might be 96% perfect, but that 4% renders the patent pretty much useless. And then all of a sudden you've told people 96% of your design and are unprotected in doing so.
Deep science companies often require longer timeframes and more capital. In terms of, you've raised, with $700K so far, and how has that journey been? I mean, so in the US, seed rounds can be $10-15 million, right? It's different.
Yeah, so we, the last year moved very quickly. So we only incorporated in February last year. It was a concept I'd been sat on. Me and my professor, Damien Corrigan at the University of Strathclyde, had tried a couple of different avenues to get this work funded. And that we kind of ran into either kind of commercial restriction, or we were unsuccessful in quite a lot of applications too. So that was kind of the driving point that made us start it as a kind of private startup vehicle a wee bit. So we moved quite quickly. So we only incorporated in February. We took place on 2 accelerators and then decided to open our pre-seed raise in September. And from open to having received all our commitments, we were only open about 9 weeks, which was great. 700, I suppose the European and the UK investment market is a lot more conservative than North American. 700 in terms of a Northern Irish pre-seed, I would say would be around a pretty average kind of benchmark, especially for being pre-MVP. So if we were to bootstrap truly, we could probably make that last about 3 years. We are looking at opening a seed round in January 27.
Yeah, we can't talk about the numbers though, because we have people.
Yeah, so we'll open a seed round in January 27, and that'll be the transition out of lab-based MVP to kind of commercially more scalable manufacturing. Yeah, like the raise itself, that was my first ever raise. And again, I would like probably add we got to skip the bit where you had to convince the investors of the problem. They knew the problem, they'd lived the problem. Everybody has. The diligence was a lot more about our ability to kind of pull it off and put our money where our mouth was. Our investment manager, Matt Ward at Clarendon, who's now my investor director from Clarendon, me and Matt actually played in the school band together. This is how long we've known each other.
Yeah, that's a long time, right?
Yeah, let me see.
What did you play?
We both played bass. So like, and he was a couple of years older than me too. Like he was tortured. We had a very serious orchestra lead too. Like I never remembered my sheet music. I could never tune my instrument. That boy was tortured. And like I love him, but it's very serious. And I still am a wee bit
guitar. You played the bass guitar, yeah?
He played the bass guitar. I was never that cool. I played the double bass.
Interesting.
But yeah, but like he was pretty much on hand with me pretty much the entire way. Because we were applying for a couple of different like commercial grants, startup grants. And like I said, they were getting complicated, whether it be IP or what we're allowed to use the money for. And it got tricky pretty quickly. And it was kind of in August. Like I kind of call it like I threw my toys out the pram moment a wee bit, but it's kind of that where you say things, and this is how I pretty much manage all expectations. You just say it and then wait to see people's reactions, and from that you kind of gauge how mental of an idea it is. So I rang him, like I was driving home. I was full-time employed all of last year, and I was driving home, and I give him a phone, and I said, like, is it maybe quicker if we raise like equity investment here? Would that kind of allow me to move more in the direction that I wanted to and to do it faster? And like, so we had no product, we had no data really. We had an academic proof of concept based off work that my professor did about 2 years ago, but even that wasn't a kind of perfect reflection of our IP, but it showed that using this bit of tech, you could do this test basically. And so it was kind of that ballsy, like, are we mental for trying this? But he basically set me about a month of homework, and then we opened the round and had it closed in 9 weeks, which in the UK for a pre-seed no product company was basically unheard of.
No, that's fantastic. You know, we're coming up to the top of the hour, the top of the show. And you look at it, and if, I always end with this. If you look 10 years into the future, what would success look like to you? Not just for, it doesn't have to be just for Biomarx, but just in general. What would success look like for the future of cancer diagnostics and patient outcomes? What do you think the world's going to look like in 10 years?
I think we're moving far away from kind of off the shelf like chemotherapeutics, or I suppose radiation still necessary for a lot of treatments, but I think we're moving into the generation of personalized therapy and targeted therapy, which our platform enables. Our platform identifies therapeutically targetable mutations. The kind of biggest limitation at the minute, and this is, I suppose, the biggest motivator for us, is it's too dear to do at the minute. It's too expensive for public healthcare to be offering these tests at any sense of scale. So even the NHS were the first public health body to adopt genome sequencing to identify not only early disease states, but also clinically actionable mutations. But the tests they use are quite expensive. They cost upwards of £1,000 per patient per test, and can take between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on where you are in the country. So for me, the biggest motivation behind all of my work was always about democratizing these access, because although the tech or the biomarker itself might be brilliant or game changing, if the scalability isn't there, what's the true value of it? So by comparison, we're ballparking our platform to be able to do a comparable analyses for clinically actionable only markers in 70 £70 in 2 hours.
Oh,
And
that's fantastic. Because you're right about it. We talk about things like I talk about continuous sensing and using a multitude of tools to be able to continually monitor what's happening with you so they can course correct. Because as you know, right, early detection, the
powerful.
probability of success goes way up, right? And so
Absolutely.
you get down through and do it. And then, these I call the frontier technologies, like we talked about stem cells, that, people hear about, but they don't know people that have done them.
Yeah.
They hear about Brian Johnson or Mel Gibson's father, but they don't know their people. When there's reasons behind it. It's quite interesting. But the future in 10 years is going to be a lot brighter. In fact, one of my friends said that if you live another 5, you'll probably live another 15 because the science will be that far ahead.
Absolutely. Like I do believe it. Like I lost my granddad to lung cancer in 2012, and from diagnosis to he died it was a couple of months, and that was a pretty aggressive, fast-growing cancer. But then even 2 years ago now, my aunt was under investigation for lung cancer, and in the current infrastructure of Northern Ireland, to get a non-red flagged referral to a respiratory clinic was, I think it was maybe 9 months. And then there was an inconclusive observation. They seen something, but it was inconclusive. And they waited, I think it was maybe another 10 months. But that's the guideline. That's the infrastructure at the minute. And
that's awful.
It's to allow, like, it's the capacity, I suppose. And it's not by any means like a kind of issue of the kind of physicians or the doctors or the medics in the room, but it's
No, but the system's not right. It's wrong. It doesn't, we're not using these technologies that are in front of us to be able to take care of these profound problems that we have, right? And the technology is right in front of us, a lot of them.
Well, that's it, but it's the accessibility of it. It's these powerful treatments or powerful diagnostics, they exist, but there's no innate benefit to any patient if they're in an elite kind of access or expensive center where we work, like in the UK here, we work under public healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's about democratizing access to that, where I suppose for me, and this was all going on in the background of me pitching, joining accelerators, trying to convince people of the value. And it's that like comparison, like when I lived in Belfast, I probably would have been over at my aunt's every weekend or every other weekend. And it's just the frustration that I suppose the problem, like any founder, is about identifying and then fixing a problem. And that problem was kind of sat at my doorstep the year I was doing this. Now, thankfully, she had a solid tissue biopsy and a confirmation, a minor surgery, and then it was curative. She's now absolutely fine, which is great. But it was the frustration that we sat through that for maybe 16 to 24 months, and it doesn't have to be. It's very different if you have to wait that long, and you have to, but we didn't have to. The opportunity for a kind of more swift diagnosis is there. It's capable to be done faster, and we use a liquid biopsy technology. Imagine you could have a kind of more clear image or a better triaged risk assessment by going to your GP for a blood test. Like, that's as simple as we're talking about here. It's as easy as we all get our cholesterol checked once a year. Like, it can be that easy. We just have to kind of keep pushing the boundary on.
Here I can go into a pharmacy here and I can do a huge panel of tests myself.
Yeah.
I can order my own tests and it goes down through. And if I run it through my AI, it can give me some very powerful indicators of what I should be doing differently.
Yeah, like I worked
I can run them every 2 weeks if I want to.
Yeah, like I worked in America, and I suppose in America, and we're starting to see it here in the UK, we've Newman, and you can order blood tests online. In America, I suppose you have the concept of concierge medicine, where you can, without speaking to a medic and without seeing a nurse, you can give a blood sample, order the test yourself, and then get back some report that breaks it down. I think that's definitely the future of kind of like independent health management. I think there's room for that to be a bit better regulated or a bit better handled. I think when we see patients, and it happens all the time here, when we see patients going and testing themselves without consult, like biological variations, and seeing what your normal and what my normal could look very different. But all of a sudden we're seeing a lot of like hysteria with patients who've went and got these tests themselves. But yeah, I think like the future of healthcare is accessibility, and it's democratizing it. It has to be cheaper, it has to be faster without compromising quality. And that is the way we kind of move forward on this.
No, it's fantastic. So closing thoughts, Sean, and how do people get a hold of you?
Get a hold of me, LinkedIn. I think my email's up there. I get a lot of emails these days, but that's not even a flex. A lot of them are cold calls, but yeah, LinkedIn's pretty good.
That's fantastic. If you want to stay on after the show, we can speak for a few minutes.
Sounds good.
I want to thank all of you for joining GST Presents Top Global Startups. As I said, my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. This is our 1600th, a little over 1600 podcast, and it's all because of all of you. We've had actors and actresses. We've had four-star admirals. We've had interesting people just like Sean from around the world. Because a lot of it's knowledge, having the right knowledge at the right place at the right time, and there's incredible things that you can be doing. And you can find these companies just like Sean's that'll help us live longer lives. So to all of you, stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I will be back to you again soon with another exciting edition of GST Presents Top Global Startups. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Thanks, Sean, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.